Mm.
Maybe I read it, so I feel like
Yeah, you've read ahead. That's good. Okay, let's go through the Sanskrit.
Yep.
Yasmin savani bhutani
Yasmin sarvani bhutani
atmaiva buddh vijanata
atmaevud vijnanata
tatra ko mohaka shoka
tatra ko moha ka soka
ekatvam anupashyata.
ekatvam anupashyata.
Okay, your turn. Your turn.
Yasmin sarvani bhutani
Yasmin sarvani bhutani
atmeva bhut vijnanata
atmaiva buddha janata
tatra ko moha ka soka
tatra ko mohaka shoka
ekatvam anupashyata.
ekadvam anupashyata. So yeah, this is mantra 7 of the Isopanisad. The translation you can read.
One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quantity one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of the things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him?
Mm. So in the previous verse, text 6, it was also talking about the subject of seeing everyone is part and parcel of the Lord and seeing the Lord also within every living thing. So this verse is further adding to that by saying that having that vision, you become the true knower. You become the true knower of things, and also as a result of having that full knowledge, the result of that is no more illusion and no more lamentation. And that's the reality, that why we are in illusion, why we suffer, why we lament, why we get affected by fear and so many things that create suffering, is because of ignorance. So the solution to that, of course, what's the opposite of ignorance, is knowledge. So, and that's the whole purpose of the Vedas, is to give us knowledge so that we won't be in ignorance. We won't, and as a result of ignorance or being an illusion, then we put ourselves through so many kind of miseries and suffering unnecessarily. If we just got the knowledge of these things, how to see things properly and so forth, then it saves us from so much trauma. Which so like that, it's unnecessary. A human being has a higher consciousness, so we should utilize the higher consciousness, get this transcendental knowledge, and immediately we can rise above illusion, rise above fear, anxiety, and so forth. And that's the real opportunity of a human being's life. That's what sets us apart from the non-human species. In the Vedas, it said there's 8,400,000 species in the universe. So 400,000 are different human species, and 8 million are other species like animal and plants and birds and so forth. And only those 400,000 human species have a more highly developed consciousness, where we can be inquisitive for the Atma Tattva, means the truth about the soul. Atma means the self, and Tattva means the truth. So where we can be inquisitive about that self-realization, like that. And even amongst the 400,000 species, not all of the human species are civilized, means, have a developed culture. We see some human beings even on, and that's talking about 400,000 in the universe. Not that there's 400,000 human species on the earth, although there is more than one human species on the earth, but that's talking about the universe. And not all of those human species have a very developed culture. So some of them, are quite barbaric. Even on the earth, we see some human species are not very developed beyond, animalistic things, eating and sleeping and mating and so forth. So they're regarded as being very uncivilized, uncultured, like that. But some human forms are, there's a lot of culture there, and we see like in India also there's a lot of culture there. So someone that's born in a human body in India is very fortunate, because right from day one they can have sadhus coming to them and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Vedic knowledge and so forth, hearing bhajans and kirtans, having temples around them, getting mahaprasadam, things like that. So that's a really wonderful culture for awakening that Atma Tattva. Of course, even if you have all the culture and everything, if you don't take advantage of it, then it's a waste of time.
Then you
and uh,
that's
and
true.
yeah, sometimes, as you know, that there's that saying, right? Familiarity breeds contempt.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That you have easy access to something and you don't
Yes.
appreciate it, you don't value it, and if
And
you don't have it, then you
in
really,
Indian there is a saying as well. Ghar
yeah,
ki murgi dal barabar means um, if you eat chicken every day,
yeah,
it's like dal. You're eating dal. I mean, it's very common. You
yeah.
ignore the things which are really common or which are easily available.
Yes, yes,
And yeah, so that's the story. I mean, yeah, that's so true. I mean, because we have all the information there, but everyone is ignoring because there's too many sadhus and saints and then teaching,
mm,
so they just ignore the real knowledge. I mean, that's
yeah,
that's that's true.
yeah. Mm. But this is coming out in this verse also, that is the real opportunity in human life, to get this higher knowledge, which can free us from illusion and suffering and lamentation, so forth. And of course, like we were talking about last week, obviously these are things that we really want. Everyone in their right mind will want to get free from lamentation and suffering and so forth.
And
But what they don't realize is that the real way to get those results is we need complete knowledge.
yes,
And like the very first verse of the Isopanisad, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. So Purnam means complete. So God is complete and we are complete parts of Him. And everything we need to exist in the material world is completely provided. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that the reason why we we suffer is because of incomplete knowledge.
mm,
Because of incomplete knowledge. So this is the benefit of human life. We can get that complete knowledge, and that is offered by the Vedas. And the knowledge of the Vedas is explained by the sadhus, by the saintly persons, the devotees of the Lord. So if we take advantage of hearing from them, we can get this complete knowledge. Yeah, so let's read about it now.
except from Madhyam Adhikari and Uttam Adhikari discussed above, no one can correctly see the spiritual position of a living being. The living entities are qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, just as sparks of fire are quantitatively one with the fire. Sorry, qualitatively
Qualitatively, yeah.
one with fire. Yet, sparks are not fire as far as quantity is concerned, for
Mm.
quantity of heat and light present in the spark is not equal to that in fire. The Mahabhagavata, the great devotee, sees oneness in the sense that he sees everything as the energy of the Supreme Lord. Since there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, there is a sense of oneness. Although from analytical point of view, heat and light are different from fire, there is no meaning to the word fire without heat and light. In synthesis, therefore, heat, light, and fire are the same.
Very good example to help us understand
Mm.
this philosophy of oneness. And as Prabhupada starts off in the purport, only the Madhyamadikari, Uttamadikari can correctly see the spiritual position of the living entity. So that's very relevant. That means that
They have to be spiritually advanced, right? I mean, that's
yeah. So we talked about there was 3 levels of devotee: Kanistha
yeah.
Adhikari, Madhyamadikari, Uttamadikari. Another name of the Uttamadikari is Mahabhagavat. Mahabhagavata is another name. But the Kanistha Adhikari, he's like still has materialistic tendencies because he's just beginning on the path. He's like a newbie on the spiritual path, like at primary school.
Yeah.
But the Madhyamadikari and the Uttamadikari have more knowledge and more faith because of that, practicing that knowledge. And because they have more knowledge, then they can distribute that to others. Someone that's not connected with these highly educated persons will not be able to get this kind of higher vision or spiritual vision of self-realization as explained here. It's not something you can sort of figure out yourself, but it's like a gift or mercy given by a highly advanced devotee to us. So therefore, the association of devotees is very important, and the Vedas says again and again the importance of the sadhu sangha, the satsanga. And that's why we see even in India today, people come together to have the satsanga, sadhu sangha, and hear from the sadhus and the devotees, and hear about the Lord. And we call it Krishna Katha or Bhagavat Katha, Ram Katha. So different kinds of talks, spiritual talks, and that's the process for reawakening that spiritual knowledge in the heart of everyone. Without that association, it's pretty much impossible for one to develop the real spiritual vision. And it's not something that you can, like a material subject, you can just figure it out yourself by reading a book or making some experiments. But even there, we see if you really want to become good at something, you can't just do it by theoretical knowledge. You also need to have a teacher. Isn't it? If you want to become a doctor, you can't just become a doctor by reading the medical manual, the journal. You need to study under a doctor. If you want to become a lawyer, you can't just read the law book. You need to study under a lawyer, a professional lawyer. So definitely the book is there, but alongside that, you need to receive teachings from an experienced person in that field, a person that knows the law book and practices the law book, or knows the medical journal and practices the medicine like that. Even you want to become an expert chef. I mean, you can read the cookbook, the recipe book, but if you train under a qualified chef, then you're going to reach a much higher level in that field and a lot faster than just by trying to follow the recipes. And
Yeah.
you can get, yeah,
I think you also are not reinventing the things. It speeds up the process.
yeah,
Otherwise, you won't basically. You will take much more time if you are doing it by yourself,
yeah,
experimenting yourself, and there's
yeah,
somebody teaching you. That
yeah,
means you are speeding up the process. You're not spending time on experimenting. So you're not reinventing the things which, I think there's a term called already chewed or something like that. Is that related?
Chewing the tube.
Yeah, that's
Chewing the
what,
tube.
because somebody's already chewed. Why you have to chew it? I mean,
Yeah.
you basically reinventing the cycle. You don't
Yes.
need to do, and that's where I think probably Mahabhagavata or people who know, you
Yeah.
learn from them. You speed up your progress, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we see, even with material subjects, to learn them, you need a teacher.
Yeah.
What to speak of spiritual subjects?
Yes.
Spiritual subjects, you absolutely must have a teacher. And why is that? Like, what makes spiritual subjects different than material subjects?
I think it's because it's transcendental. It's beyond our senses.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. You hit it on the button. That's because, the soul, you can't see it with your eyes. The Paramatma, God, you can't see him with your eyes. The Vaikuntha planets, the spiritual realm, you can't see it with your eyes. So just by experimental process with your senses, like, the modern scientific process, with your telescope or your microscope or whatever, you won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
By any kind of experimental things. It's not going to be revealed. So you need another whole paradigm. We need to look at it from a different angle. And like I said, these higher realizations, spiritual realizations, is given to us from a higher authority. It's not something you can just endeavor by your own power to get it. That it's mercy. I mean, it's coming down to us. It's through revelation. The word revelation is used. That they're not, when God or his devotees are pleased by our humble service attitude, then they bestow the knowledge on us. So that vision is given to us. So when it talks about, having spiritual vision and seeing oneness everywhere, seeing God everywhere and the souls everywhere, that kind of vision is not something that it's not something you did to get that vision yourself, but it was given to the person when the Lord and the Lord's devotees were pleased by his humble service. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about that in the 11th chapter, because he gives a special vision to Arjuna where he can see the Vishvarupa. You know what is the Vishvarupa? The universal form?
Universal form, yeah.
Yeah, so in the 11th chapter, Krishna shows Arjuna his universal form. So he's standing on one place in the battlefield in Kurukshetra, and he can see the whole universe in front of his eyes. And not everyone on the battlefield could see that. Just because Arjuna could see it doesn't mean all the other soldiers could see. There was only a few people that could see. And those ones are also gifted with that vision by Krishna. Like I think from memory, Bhishma could see some of it, and maybe a few others, hardly anyone. So that's a gift bestowed upon someone that the Lord thinks is qualified to be able to have that vision. And the qualifications are, you have to be a devotee. Only a devotee is given that vision to see the Lord. He reserves the right of who he's going to reveal himself to. He's not going to show himself to just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. If you're not qualified, you're never going to be able to see him. I mean, and that, like I said, is by having bhakti, by having devotion. If you have love for the Lord, then you'll be able to see the Lord. He'll reveal himself to you. But if we don't have any love for the Lord, if we don't know anything about the Lord, then we're never going to be able to see the Lord. And it doesn't matter what we do. You could be a, billionaire or whatever, but you can't, make some special glasses or whatever that you're going to see the soul or anything like that. It's not possible. Mm.
Yeah,
And it's the same that even yourself, you're not going to reveal confidential information about yourself to a stranger, isn't it? Only someone that you trust completely, and you have a relationship with them and you trust them, then you'll reveal, your innermost secrets and everything like that. Like, you don't just tell everyone where you live, what's your street address, and who are your family members and everything, and how much money you have in the bank, and all these kind of things. You're very careful about who you're going to reveal your inner things like that. So the Lord's the same. He doesn't reveal himself to someone that doesn't have any relationship with him or love him. Of course, he loves everyone. There's no question about that. He's the father of everyone. And like that we read in the beginning, Ishivasya Medam Savam, that he gives everyone a quota of his property and everything to maintain them, because we're all his children, whether we acknowledge that or not. But he knows the fact that he's our father, our maintainer. But so he's prepared to do that for everyone, even the most ignorant person or even the ignorant animals. He provides for them everything. So definitely that relationship is there. But if we're not consciously trying to develop love for him and want to serve him voluntarily, then he's not going to reveal his spiritual personality to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, totally. The example you gave was very good. I mean, it's very, I mean, in sense, I won't reveal, the information I have or private information I have somebody I don't trust. Exactly same. I mean, if I trust somebody, I'm loyal to somebody, if somebody's loyal to, I'll share with him, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes total sense. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a, you can relate, I mean, from the material world to Lord as well. So the kind of a system he has, we already have here, but there's some kind of a parallel there. I mean, so the more you are trusted, the more you're loyal to somebody, they will be more close to you. They will reveal you the things which they won't reveal anybody else who's not close or loyal or trusted to him.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, perfectly.
Yeah. And just like with us, there's nothing other people can do to get that personal information. It's only something that we know. Like there's things about ourselves that only we know, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Even sometimes there might be some things that even our family don't know about us.
Yeah.
No, so it's not something you can just figure out. So that's what I mean. It has to be revealed. Like how are you really going to know God? The best way to know God is by hearing from God. You can't figure out about him just through mental speculation. Just through speculation, we can't understand another human being. Some basic things, but not any real personal the inner thoughts and what makes the person tick and everything like that. That has to be revealed. I can't say what's going on in your mind right now.
Yes.
But if you want, you can reveal your mind, and then we know, so what actually, God is like, and what he wants and everything like that. The best way to find out is just to hear from him. So this is a process of revelation. And then Prabhupada's giving this brilliant analogy of the fire to help us understand this principle of oneness. So that's pretty clear, right?
It's crystal. I mean, because
And another example is the sun, that the sun produces also heat and light, like the fire produces heat and light, and the sun also produces heat and light. And there's no difference really between the sunlight and the sun, because sunlight is made up of the sun. You can't have the sun planet without heat and light, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can't have heat and light without the sun. So it's all together. You can't separate them, isn't it? If you took the sun away, there's no heat and light. And if you took the heat and light away, then the sun has no meaning. There's no meaning to the sun if it doesn't have heat and light. It's all a complete package. It's all one thing. And yet there is a difference quantitatively, because as we talked about before, the sunlight comes in your room, but the sun planet doesn't come in your room. If the sun planet came, there's no more room. So there's a difference in quantity, but the quality is the same. And they're inseparable. Like Prabhupada uses the word energy and energetic. Energy and energetic. Do you know the meaning of energetic? What is energetic?
It's the source. I mean, somebody is energetic. Yes, the source and the energy.
Yeah. So you can't really separate the source of the energy and the energy. Isn't it?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. It's like part and whole, Part is, so part cannot be whole.
Yeah. And also the part cannot exist without the whole.
Without the whole.
And without the parts, the whole also has no meaning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But without the parts, the whole, and Prabhupada gives a beautiful analogy. He says, can you have a king without any subjects? Without any citizens? It has no meaning. A king means someone that rules over the citizens, over the subjects. If you take away the subjects or the citizens, it doesn't have any meaning, because king means someone who rules over citizens. So in the same way, God must have parts and parcels, and he's the controller of them, and they serve him. So you can't take away the parts from God, and then God doesn't have any meaning. And you can't take God away, otherwise there will be no parts. Without the whole, there's not going to be any parts. And without the parts, the whole also doesn't have any meaning. So you can't separate. So it's the same with the energy and the energetic. Even like us, right? We have many energies that are coming from us. We're the energetic, and we have many energies, and you can't separate that. You might create a business or whatever. So that's one of your energies, that you created some business or something. And also you've produced also a family, and you can't separate that also. And you might build a house, so that house becomes your energy, or whatever it is. You cook a meal, rice, dal, sabji, or whatever. So that's also your energy, that you've brought these things together and everything like that. So that you can't take away the energies from a person also. Otherwise, a person doesn't have any meaning without having energies. A person is someone that has energies. We're a conscious being, and we do things. We're always active, and different energies are produced. But whereas we produce a very small amount of energies, Krishna, he's a supreme person. He produces, unlimited energies. I just heard Prabhupada explaining about this point recently, because there was a conversation about how there's unlimited universes, and each universe, imagine it like a big football, and it's half full of water. It's half full of water, and so the bottom half of the universe is water, and the top half is space. And within the space, as you know, there's many planets floating. So what we see in the sky at night is we're seeing some of this top half of the universe. We're not able to see, obviously, below where it's all water. And on that water, that's called that water is called the Garbhodaka Ocean. That half fills the universe. That's called the Garbhodaka Ocean. And on that ocean is a form of Vishnu called Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. There's three Vishnus. That one that we've explained, Garbhodakashayi, and Siradakashayi. So he has, in each universe, there's one spiritual planet, a Vaikuntha planet within the material universe, where Siradakashayi Vishnu resides. And that on that planet, that has an ocean of milk. Like here, this planet, we have an ocean of salt water. So on that planet, it's a different ocean made of milk. And that's why called Siradakashayi, sheer, means like here, or sheer, means milk. So he lives on that planet with an ocean of, surrounded by an ocean of milk. And from him expands all the Paramatma. He's the origin of the Paramatma, are all expansions from him. That's in the heart of every living thing. And then there's Mahavishnu or Karanadakashayi Vishnu, and he resides on the after the border of the material universes. There's a spiritual ocean between the material universe and the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. There's this spiritual ocean called the Karana Ocean. The Karana Ocean. And there a gigantic Vishnu lies on Anantasesha called Karanadakashayi Vishnu or Mahavishnu. So all the universes come out of his skin pores. And then that's how the universes are created. And like I said, within each universe, then there's Garbhodakashayi Vishnu lies on the water that half fills, and then Siradakashayi Vishnu. So anyway, getting back to Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, where does that water come from that half fills the universe? It comes from his own skin pores, from his sweating, perspiring. So you can just imagine how gigantic he is, that just his perspiration is half filling the universe. And then Prabhupada makes the point that with a human being, we also perspire, especially if you're in a hot country like India. Then he mentions, like, in one day you might produce 1 cup of sweat. If it was collected, if you collected all your sweat, it might produce, say, there might be 1 cup of water from your sweat. And that's your energy. So that's something you have produced, this particular energy of water. Water is an energy, right? So, and the Lord is so great that he's producing, enough water to half fill the universe. But the same principle is there. He has vast energies and we have small energies. Like now we're speaking, right? That this sound vibration, that's energy, right? And so we are producing that energy of sound, or we're producing water, so many things we're producing. And the Lord, when he speaks, those words are the Vedas, and that's his energy. So the Vedas is actually the energy and sound of the Lord, and it's inseparable from the Lord. Just like you can't really separate our words from us either. It's our energy, right?
Yeah.
It's my words or your words, it's not, it's coming from us. One time Prabhupada talked about something interesting. He was saying about, he was explaining about how the material world is the separated energy of God. The separated energy of God. And in this, he was explaining that just like every lecture Prabhupada spoke, it was recorded. So there was a recording. And that recording of what he spoke, that's his energy, because he spoke it, but it's separated from him. So even like now, 50 years later, we are listening to a lecture that Prabhupada spoke 50 years ago. So that's Prabhupada. But it's separated from him.
Separated.
You know what I'm saying? It's separated.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's the energy of the Lord. I mean, yeah, it's maybe it's Prabhupada's voice, but ultimate source is God, right? Even if the voice is coming from our, that is said, our hands move, our voice, everything is.
Yes.
So at the end
Yes.
of it, it's His energy. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I understand the way you're saying separated in the sense, yeah, it's kind of in material sense it's separate, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. But like in the Vaikuntha, it's not separated energy because you're living with God. You know, you're right there with him. So there's no separation between him and his energy anymore. He's right there. Whereas now it seems like, just like it might not seem that Prabhupada's here, because physically it seems like he's not here. But his energy is here in the form of his books, like we're reading Sri Isopanisad,
Yep.
which is his energy. But it seems like there's a separation between the person and the book. But actually, it's intimately connected. It's not different than Prabhupada. It's his energy. But we might not be conscious that Prabhupada's here. It seems like he's not here. In another sense, he is here.
Yeah,
Because
materially
he's in
he's
his
not there.
words.
Spiritually he's there because his energy is still there. We are listening,
Yes.
we are reading. So, I mean,
Yes.
in a different form. And as you said, I mean, from speculative point of view, there's a theory which says everything in this universe is energy. I mean, even if you look at the material, things keep changing, right? They keep changing form because it's a different. So that makes sense. I mean, yeah, and because he has put that energy as his word, so it's his energy. We can identify, we can relate that because he has said that his energy still remains separated energy because he's materially is not here, but his still material energy which he has spoken or written is still there, and we are utilizing it. Yeah, and that's
Well, it's actually spiritual energy because he's speaking about God. So
okay.
It's
Yeah, that makes
spiritual energy. Yeah. But I mean, ultimately, in the absolute sense, everything is spiritual energy ultimately because everything comes from God, whether it be the water or the earth or the fire or the sky or space or everything. So I mean, like these Mahabhagavatas, Uttamadhikaris, they're seeing God everywhere. So they're seeing everything. For them, everything's spiritual energy. But when we're in illusion, when we're in Maya, we see everything as material.
Yeah, that's
But what is material means it's a forgetfulness of God, that you're thinking everything is separated from God. But ultimately nothing is separated from God. But only in
so
our
you're not looking at, you're not believing God. So the thing is that you make responsible for everything. This is mine. This is my house. I mean, that's basically you don't know the real knowledge that who is actually creating, and then you in illusion that, oh, this is already there. I'm using, I'm manipulating it. I am the master, but no, you are not the master. I mean, yeah, you can't. You might be just playing up with the material, but ultimately, it's not yours. I mean, and as you said, I think previously as well, because we desire, we want to lord over the material.
Yeah.
That's what the
Yeah.
we want to manipulate. I think that's yeah. We think we are God, but obviously, I mean, from if we have read the scripture, we have understood. We are not. I mean, we are just just a instrument, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's very nice. Very nice. I was just remembering that Prabhupada said that I always felt the presence of my spiritual master when I am remembering his instructions. So Prabhupada would always be remembering the instructions, the words, remembering the energy, the words from his spiritual master. And he said that he always felt the presence of his spiritual master. So that's the thing. When you remember that fact that the energy and the energetic is not separate, but it's one. It's together. You can't separate the energy and the energetic. When you remember that, then there is a connection. Then immediately you remember the person. You remember the person. Even like, your kids. Your kids might not be personally present there in the house. Maybe they're out to school or whatever. But if you see their shoes lying around, what do you think of?
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Think about them,
You think of
obviously.
them, right?
Yeah.
If you see their school bag, their lunchbox,
Mm.
their pens and pencils, or their whatever their mobile phone or whatever lying around, you immediately think of them. So like that, whenever Prabhupada would always feel, he said, never for a moment did I feel my spiritual master was absent. I always felt his association, because I'm always thinking of his instructions. So through remembering the words of the person, you actually become connected to the person. So this is the spiritual principle that we're working on. And just like by chanting Hare Krishna, we're actually connecting with Krishna through sound. Through the sound vibration of Krishna's names, we're actually connecting with Krishna. Prabhupada said when you chant Hare Krishna, that Krishna's dancing on your tongue. So this is the principle, that the energy and the person who produces the energy is not separate. They're one. And it's mentioned that, like in the material world, if you say water, 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 but can you taste the water? You actually have to drink the object water to taste the water. You can't say the name water or pani or jal or whatever and taste it. But in the spiritual world, if you say water, you can taste the water. There's no difference in the spiritual realm between the object and the name of the object. It's absolute. So that's Advaita. Advaita, the principle Advaita, or it's one, it's absolute. So in the spiritual world, the object and the name of the object are identical. There's no difference. So also the name of God and the person God is identical. And that's why we chant Hare Krishna. We're actually associating with God. That's the process recommended if you want to associate with God, to chant his names, say his names, and then you're actually with him. And not only he's identical with his names, but he's identical with his pastimes. That's called Leela. So we say Krishna Nam, Krishna's name, Krishna Leela, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna Rupa, Krishna's form. Krishna's form and the spiritual being Krishna is identical. There's no difference. Like, this body is different than us, the soul. The
Yeah.
soul is not this body, right?
Yeah.
not this form. When this form dies, the soul will still continue to exist separate from the body. So this body is not identical with us, the soul. But with Krishna, it's different. There's no difference between Krishna's body, his form, and Krishna. Krishna's soul and body is all one entity. It's not that Krishna has a body and then within the body he has a soul. It's not like that. And within the body he has a mind. That's all separate. There's only one entity, Krishna, and it's all complete. His body, his mind, his soul, it's one absolute entity. So that's something different, between the material world and the spiritual world. So we take advantage of that if we can just hear about Krishna's name or say his name or hear about his form or look at his form, like in the temples, his form is there. That's identical with Krishna. And his pastimes, hearing about Govardhan Leela, Rasa Leela, Makanchor Leela, or killing some asuras, or Bhagavad Gita Leela, like that, is you're actually associating with him through this process of sound vibration. So it's very powerful.
So it's his energy. I mean, Bhagavad Gita is his energy, and basically it's all Vedas.
Yes. But the thing is, like I'm saying, it's not just his energy. It's actually Krishna is present there also. It's not just that the energy is there. Definitely, I mean that's obvious. But Krishna is actually present. Like in some temples, they'll actually put the Bhagavad Gita, the book, on the altar. It's actually God. It's God in sound. It's God in sound. And that's something difficult for our materialistic mind to comprehend. And it's like I said, that word achincha, inconceivable. It's a bit maybe inconceivable to us. How Krishna is present just by saying his name, or Krishna is present just by having Krishna's words of the book there, that Krishna is actually present. But we understand, philosophically that is a fact. Whether we've realized it or not, it's another thing. But in terms of philosophy, that is the tattva. That's the truth. That there's no difference between Krishna's energy and Krishna. If you're associating with Krishna's energy, you're actually associating with Krishna himself. And we see that like with Prahlad, that Nrsingadev just appeared out of the pillar. He can be present at any particular place, at any time, and we know he's within the heart of every living being. He's there in Paramatma. He's already there. So just like Paramatma's in our heart of you, me, and your kids and everywhere, he's also within even the atom. So I mean, even this book is made up of trees, right? Yeah. Made of paper. And also within this, Paramatma is there. Yeah. So even within the paper, Paramatma is there. And Paramatma is one aspect of God. So Paramatma is already there, but also Bhagavan Krishna can manifest also. He's everywhere also. I mean, he can become manifest everywhere. It's very inconceivable how he can do that, but that's his inconceivable Shakti, that he's able, like Nrsingadev just appeared right there out of the pillar at that particular time. He can also appear anywhere he likes when he's, and he's only going to appear though, like I said, to the devotee. He only reveals himself to the devotee. So you'll see that he'll only manifest in the material world to show his love and mercy to a devotee. So he was there on the Battle of Kurukshetra. Why? Because Arjuna was there. His devotee was there. You wouldn't have seen Krishna there, I bet you, if Arjuna wasn't there. Actually, he only come behind that. He only agreed to come just to help Arjuna, because he loved Arjuna. Or like that, Nrsingadev only came to help Prahlad, and Vishnu only came to help Dhruva Maharaj. He appeared to Dhruva. So like that, whenever you'll see the Lord appears, it's to show his love and mercy to a devotee, because of love. So like now, if we're talking about God now, so God actually becomes present in this particular place where we are because we're talking about him. This is what attracts him, where there's bhakti, because this is what we're doing now. This is a process of bhakti. We're hearing and chanting about him. This is Shravanam Kirtanam. So this processes of bhakti, it attracts the Lord. And that's why this process is so purifying, because the Lord actually becomes present and we become purified by his presence.
Yeah, I never thought so deeply. That's part energy and energetic. I think now I understand. And he's everywhere, as you said. I mean, because everything is his energy. So there's not one place where he's not there. And that's true. I mean, we have to acknowledge his authority and where our position basically, and then we are totally dependent on him. So what happens in the real world, I mean, if you're dependent on somebody, you just you show your respect and do things according to what he says. So I think the Vedas and Upanishad, they are all his directions, I guess. But materially affected people, they don't have understanding of that part, spiritual part, because that's achinte, inconceivable. The word you use, it's inconceivable because it's not perceptible by the senses. So if you don't understand the knowledge, if you don't know where it's coming from and who's giving it to you and what's your position and what's his position, then you won't be able to understand anything. So that makes so much sense. I mean,
And this is how the illusion goes away that's mentioned in this verse, and the lamentation and so forth, shoka, goes away, all these bad qualities, because the Lord becomes present in the devotee's life, because the devotee is chanting his names and his pastimes and hearing about him and everything like that, serving him. The Lord becomes present. And because the Lord is pavitra, he's the purest person, he's pavitra, he's so pure that all these inauspicious, ashubha, bad things get cleared off. All the ignorance gets blasted out of our hearts, out of our consciousness. All the lust and greed and anger and envy and pride and lamentation and everything gets cleared off. So that's how it actually happens, that these things get removed, because we're actually invoking the Lord's association by this process of talking about him and hearing about him and serving him like that. That's how it actually happens, that we become ourselves purified, because he's so pure. And if we can somehow or other invoke his association, that through that contact with him, we become purified.
I think the anxiety part, it's because if you look at the real world, anxiety means you don't know about something, right? That's where you're anxious. But when you have the knowledge, you know that something is exactly what you know, that then there's no anxiety because you know what's going to happen, right? That makes total sense. So basically, when you have the right knowledge, you won't be anxious because you know what's going to happen. If you do this, you will get this. But if you are not have the right knowledge, then you will be saying what's going to be the result. Oh, it's going to be this. It's going to be this. This is going to happen. You will have multiple things, and then you become anxious. So the right knowledge, I think it's and that knowledge is the real knowledge is coming from him.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
true. I think it's so.
That's time's up. Wow, that went by very fast. I didn't even notice the time go
1
by.
hour. That's
Yeah.
I learned a few new things. Yeah, that's pretty good.
But it's a very powerful process, very powerful process. And like it's saying here that through this process, one can actually develop the spiritual vision to see God everywhere and to see the soul everywhere. And at that point, we become free from all kinds of suffering and illusion, ignorance, and everything like that. So it's a very powerful process.
And you can feel that you as you involved in it, you feel and you will know that you understand more things clearly. I mean, the material world or things around why it's happening, and clarity comes in. The lucidity or that clarity slowly comes in. I mean, things become slowly clear. I mean, so he gives you intelligence and knowledge basically, and then things become slowly clear. And as you said, in association of his purity, everything is So I mean, that's why everyone is not following. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I still remember when I first met the Hare Krishnas like 30 years ago. I learned more in the first day of meeting Hare Krishnas than I had in my whole life, in terms of the real nitty-gritty, essential things like what is the meaning of life and the purpose of life and why are we here and everything. It was just so much knowledge coming so quickly than all I'd been able to gather, through my own efforts for the previous 20 years. I got more in one day than I had in 20 years. It's just such a powerful process when you're just hearing it from the devotees of the Lord, and there's just so much knowledge there, isn't it?
I mean, and it's not run of the mill material knowledge. It's
No.
something just very just makes you very inquisitive. Questions like why I'm here and what's basic. I mean, what's my purpose? I mean, then you start thinking. If you are not exposed to devotee, you're not thinking that. Then you are just into the material world. You're just looking, doing the same thing again and again. You don't have any different angle to your life, or
Yeah. We see people without devotees association, they never figure it out, isn't it? They go through their whole life. They never get out of that vicious cycle of, of suffering in different ways and so much anxiety right till death. They're always in anxiety and lamenting and hankering and fearing, and, they never get out of it. But as soon as you meet up with devotees, you can just snap out of it real quick, just immediately transformation starts to happen. So that's I mean, you actually know that you are receiving the Lord's mercy and favor if you do get the association of devotees.
I think you are getting it because of the mercy.
Yeah. You can already tell that you have received some mercy if you have been able to get that satsanga sadhusanga, because without the mercy you're not even going to get that opportunity. It's very rare actually to get the satsanga sadhusanga, association with devotees. So we're already, getting some blessings there, and if we take advantage of that, then we'll get even more mercy, and he'll start to enlighten us in our heart, like you were saying. In your own hearts, you'll get these realizations as you go further like that. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think there was a joke around it that somebody an old person was there in somewhere. There was supposed to be flood coming in, and
Yeah,
he doesn't wanted to move.
yeah,
So, um, so somebody came to him, and the locals came and said, "Let's go. It's just gonna be, it's gonna flood, and you're gonna die here."
yeah,
And he said, "No, no, no. I'm gonna stay here." And
yeah,
then he was very religious in terms of he goes to church and everything. So
yeah,
he said, "God will save me. Don't worry
yeah,
about me." Then the police came, then the army came, but he didn't go anywhere.
yeah,
And then flood came, and he couldn't he has to run up the stairs and go up on the roof. And
yeah,
then he said, "God, you're not here to save me." Then God came and said, "What about neighbors I sent to you? I sent you the police. I'm just giving you an indication." And the army came here.
yeah,
I sent them, and you didn't
yeah,
listen to me. So
yeah,
God always gives hint. You have to pick it up. I mean, that's
yeah,
what it is. I mean,
yeah,
He gives
yeah,
hint in material ways, right?
yeah,
It's yeah. That's also there. We have to look
yeah,
for it. But the thing is that we have to have knowledge that He's giving hints. He's there
yeah.
and giving hints. The first thing you have to believe that He's
Yes,
there and
yes,
He's giving hints. That's
yes, yes.
the hurdle. I think that's
Yeah, he has so many energies he works through. Yeah,
yeah, that joke reminds me. Okay,
yeah,
so you have to keep looking. Something happens in your life. I
yeah,
mean, some indications. He's giving something, some indication to you. You have to just,
yes,
maybe take it.
yes,
Don't fight too hard, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I've taken too much of your time. Thank you
No,
very much.
lovely to see you again.
Yeah, no, really lovely to see you too.
Yeah.
And it's really, yeah, it's very nice.